Hello there and welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first video you are seeing of mine, then welcome. Now, first and foremost, the makeup I'm wearing today, this has nothing to do with the eyeshadow palette I'm going to be using today. I decided to be productive and film the intro for this video on the same day that I filmed my outro on a different video. And if you are curious about anything that I am wearing, this video went up this past Friday. It was the ColourPop and Rudolph eyeshadow palette. I was testing that out. So if you're interested in all of this, I will have that video link for you up above. But today I wanted to just sit down and play with the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 palette. Now, I know for many people this palette is old news. I know he's recently launched his third one, but this would be my first eyeshadow palette from him that I'm getting to try. I've only ever used his blush palettes, and I love all three of those. I did finally manage to get this year's holiday palette, which, boy, that was a journey to get that palette. And I know a lot of people have probably already moved on to his third one, but my Kohl's near me recently just added a Sephora in store. I don't have a standalone Sephora store, so I have to rely on that Kohl's for, picking up anything in person. And the Major Dimension 2 palette was the only one they had. They didn't have the first or the third one, so I just picked this one up. But honestly, I did say that when I wanted to try out this eyeshadow palette that the second one was going to be the one I wanted to go for because it does have these pretty rosy neutrals in it. So I am going to be including live swatches, and we'll be doing 3 looks with this palette. I want to make sure I'm using all of the eyeshadows before I give any thoughts on the palette. So if all that sounds interesting, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, here we have the Major Dimension 2 eyeshadow palette. Now, I know for many people this palette is probably old news. I know he recently launched his third one, but if you're like me and maybe you don't have any of his palettes yet, I wanted to include swatches because, well, first of all, this will be my first time swatching one of his eyeshadow palettes. This will be my first palette from him like this. Now, I do have his blush palettes, his holiday blush palettes, but this will be the first actual eyeshadow palette that I have. So, let's just swatch. Let's swatch the shimmer shades first, and then I'll swatch the mattes and then the creams. Because I have never tested his formula before like this, so I'm just curious to see. Ooh. Well, those are really pretty. Alright, let's swatch these last 2 shimmer shades. Then we'll move on to the mattes. Wow, those are really pretty. They're more like topper shades, except for maybe this one and that one. Really pretty though. Okay, we'll start with this deepest matte and then just go this way. I have heard that a lot of people say they actually prefer his matte formula over his shimmer formula. So I am anxious to see how they perform on the eyes. I shouldn't have swatched that shade right there. Should have put it down a little lower, but it's okay. I can still see the color, but that was my fault putting it there. Should have went a little lower, but it's okay. And we'll swatch these last 2 matte shades, and then I'll swatch the creams. His matte formula does feel really soft. Now that shade's kind of like my skin tone, so that's probably not going to really show up on me. But wow, these are really pretty. Now, I know I've said many times before that I'm not the biggest fan of creams in palettes, but I do really like Patrick Ta's products, so wow, those feel really creamy. I may have misspoke. Maybe I do like cream shadows after all. Wow. Well, trying to put it over my, well, there you go. Put it over my tattoo a little bit, but wow, they're so soft. And there's the whole palette swatched out. Really, really lovely. I cannot wait to put this on my eyes. So excited to try it. Okay, I'm just going to start out with this shade right here. This is basically my skin tone, so I'm just going to go all over the lid with that. There are names on the back of this palette, but I'm not exactly sure. You know, how they're read, like, you know, if you're looking at it a certain way. So I'm just going to point to the shades, but I'm just going to take that and we're just going to put that just all over the lid. I've already really set my lid with my Rimmel Stay Matte Pressed Powder, but this shade is my skin tone, so it doesn't really show up that much on me. So I'm just going to use it to further set my lid, just in case I might have missed a spot with my Rimmel Stay Matte Powder. Okay, then I'm going to take this shade right here on a blending brush from e.l.f. and place that right in my crease. These matte shades are really, really soft. Do have a slight kick up. I won't say it's like really that bad compared to some palettes I've used, but I know that it's really pressed softly, so I can see that. So I can see there being fallout. Okay, we're going to go down one more using that same brush. And just deepen up that crease a little bit with that shade. I'm keeping that shade pretty much right, like directly in my crease. Okay, then I'm going to go to this shade right here, and I'm going to take that on a concealer brush from e.l.f. This is the deepest shimmer shade. I'm just going to pack that on this outer corner. I might have to keep going back in because I noticed in the swatches, a lot of the shimmer shades felt more like topper shades. That's building up real nicely. I didn't use a random number generator today to pick out the looks or anything. I just wanted to use as many eyeshadows as I possibly can. I want to try to use all of them. But so far, I'm really impressed. Especially with those mattes. They blended so easily. I'm sad now that I waited so long to have one of his palettes. Using that same brush, I'm going in with this shimmer shade right here. I haven't sprayed my brush yet. I wanted to see what these shades can do on their own. I'm going to put this shade in the very center. These are really pretty. I think these two shimmer shades were the ones that felt like they actually had like a base to them. But the next three, I believe, are more like topper shades. So I'll see what they can do with a brush, and I could always go in and spray it if I need to. Okay, I'm going to take the same brush and go in with this shade right here. Okay, I didn't spray my brush. We're just going to see what it does on its own. Take that right in there. I know these would probably be better applied with a finger, but these nails make it really hard for me to really get into that inner corner, so that's why I'm using a brush. Okay, so I'm just going to do like my mascara, and I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do a lash, but I'm going to do all that off camera and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, for my mascara today, I used the Better Than Sex Foreplay Mascara Primer, and then this time I paired it up with the One Size Fantasize Mascara. I've never used this combo before, so I think it did pretty good. I really like this mascara primer. I think that it really helps my lashes. I don't have naturally long lashes, so I think that this is really helpful for me. I know that everybody's lashes are different, but I see a difference with this. Okay, I'm going to go in with this shade right here on a small angled brush from e.l.f. This is the deepest matte shade, so I just picked up a little, and I'm going to place that on just the outer half of my lower lash line. I am trying to use as many shades in this palette as possible. I want to use all of them. I mean, not on one eye, but between my two eyes. I'm hoping I can use all of the shades. Okay, using that same brush, I'm going in with this shimmer shade right here. If I'm reading the back correctly, that would be the shade Romance. I never know how to read the backs of those things, but I'll find out for sure, and I'll have the shades I use listed in the description box. I'm going to put that right here on the beginning portion of my lower lash line. Then I'm going to go back in with this shade, just using the same brush, and pop that on my inner corner. Okay, and there is look number 1 all done. We used 8 shades on that lid in total. And it's really, I mean, these shades blend so easily together, no issues whatsoever. So let's move on to look number 2. Okay, I had completely forgot that I was going to be using the cream shade, so I had set this eye with powder. But I'm going to see how this shade performs over powder. So I'm going to take this cream shade on a blending brush from e.l.f. But if it messes up, it's not the palette's fault, it's my fault. But I'm going to take just a little bit on this brush. And I'm going to start stamping that all over the lid. Well, I will say, powder is not stopping. Let me tap off some of the excess of that shade because, wow, that is pigmented. Okay. Stamp that all over the lid. It's laying beautifully over powder. These are really pigmented. Like, I keep wiping off the excess on my brush. You do not need much of these. Yeah, it's laying really nice over that powder. I'm very happy about that because I was afraid I'd messed it up before I even got started. Boy, that's a pretty shade. Honestly, I could see somebody just using that shade all over the lid and then putting down one of these shimmer shades, and that's a whole look right there. Maybe I like cream eyeshadows and palettes after all. Okay, this is the last matte shade that I haven't used yet. So if I'm reading the back correctly, that's the shade Passion. I'm going to tap that on this outer edge of my lid. Give me some dimension. I mean, I am so impressed by how this shade is blending over the top of that cream. Because if you watched my video where I was testing the new Pretty Grunge palette from Huda Beauty, I was talking about how, I won't get much use out of the cream shades. I was wrong. At least when it comes to this palette. Okay, I'm going to take this shade right here. I'm going to try to do this on my finger. We'll see how that goes. Because this shade is definitely more like a topper. But these nails... I thought about just trying to do like a scatter effect with it. Just kind of pressing it all around over what was left of the cream. No real pattern, just tapping all over. I just love how sparkly that shade is. I'm just going to do some mascara and I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, this deepest cream shade is the last shade in the palette that I haven't used yet, so I'm going to take that on a small angled brush from e.l.f. I probably dipped way too much in that because these are, yeah. You barely have to tap your brush into these and you get instant pigment. So now I know I just need the teeniest amount of these shades. I'm just wiping off the excess on my hand and there is so much. I'm gonna tap over it a little bit. I picked up way too much. And there is look number 2. Now, I have used all the shades in the palette now, but I want to come back and do one more look just using all of the matte shades. I just want to do an all matte look, so that will be look number 3. Okay, I just wanted to sit down and do an all matte look with this palette, but before I get into that, I just want to talk about the wear of the looks that I did yesterday. They lasted all day, the powders at least. Now, the cream did do a little bit of creasing, but I do have, if you can kind of see, I do have creases on my eyelids, so I expect cream shadows to crease a little bit, and it wasn't really bad or anything, but it was there, so I do want to mention that. I always want to point anything out that I noticed like that. It wasn't too bad, and it wouldn't keep me from using the creams the same way in the future, but still wanted to point it out. I'm going to start with the shade Amour on a blending brush from e.l.f. I'm only going to be using 3 shades, and to keep it simple, we're just going to be using this same brush. I'm going to run this shade in my crease. And I finally did figure out how to read the shades on the back. It was the way you would expect. So all the shades that I used in each look will be listed in the description box below. So in case you want to skip around to certain looks, there are timestamps listed there. I think the shimmers are really lovely in this palette, but I do think the mattes are really amazing. So that definitely makes me want to pick up his third palette because it's an all matte palette, well, aside from the 2 creams. Okay, then I'm going to go in with the shade Devotion. I'm just going to tap that on this outer half of my lid. Just using that same brush. We're just going to keep it real easy. I do love sparkle and shimmer shades. I like to add those to my looks, but I will say there is something really pretty about an all matte look. It just looks so, I don't know, effortless, just so neat, or I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. I just think it's pretty. Then I'm going to take the shade Crush, and we're going to place that right here on this beginning part of my lid. Still using that same brush, just wanted to keep this look very, very simple. And that's everything. That's all I'm going to be doing for the lid, just a really quick and easy look. So I'm going to do my other eye off camera, do some mascara, and I'll come right back to do the lower lash line. Okay, the mascara I'm wearing is just the One Size Fantasize mascara. I'm just wearing like one small little coat, maybe 1.5. I didn't even curl my lashes. I just wanted a very soft mascara look today since this eye look is really just very subtle. So no intense lashes here today, just a really soft mascara. Okay, I'm going to take that shade Devotion on a small angled brush from e.l.f. and run that on the outer half of my lower lash line. Then on that same brush, I'm going to take the shade Crush, and that's just going to go on the beginning portion of my lower lash line, meeting up with that deeper shade right in the center. Okay, and there is look number 3, all done. Okay, I have now officially used all the shades in the palette, and then I did an extra look today, just a bonus look with this palette. I really love it. I really do. And I'm so sad that it took me this long to try one of Patrick Ta's eyeshadow palettes. Now I definitely want the first one and the third one for sure. So I know this palette is, like I said in the beginning, probably really old news for many people. But if you are like me and maybe, you know, you're a little bit later in trying a Patrick Ta palette, I think this is such a lovely palette. I mean, even these cream shades are really nice. Now I will say, there was some minor creasing on my lid with these cream shades, like where I used this one all over the lid. But now I did use too much, so it might not crease as badly if you go in with a smaller amount, which I will definitely do next time. But all in all, I really adore this palette. I'm so glad that I have it in my collection. I hate that it took me this long, like I said, but I'm so happy to have it now. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, I hope you will please consider leaving a like, a comment, or subscribing if you haven't already. And please make sure to follow me over on Instagram at Jessica Dearly, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!